Yo, guys, Venom Fire here back from a video, and today we're going to be talking about the top 5 NFL teams to use in Madden 22. And we're going to start out with our best team. If you're wondering what I'm doing in the background, we're going to continue working on some of these rookie premieres in preparation for Madden 23. And yeah, so we're just going to talk about some of the teams that I liked in the beta and overall just the reasons why these teams are good. Some of them will be obvious, but we will have a couple of sleepers in there as usual. And we're actually going to start out with the number 1 team that might be a little bit of a surprise to some of you. I'm sure some of you guys are going through the top teams in the NFL, the Buccaneers. There's some new sleeper teams like the Broncos. What are we thinking? We are going not with the Chiefs, not with the Raiders, not with the Broncos, but we're actually going with the Los Angeles Chargers team as our best team in NFL to use in Madden 23. And it's going to be for a multitude of reasons. And we're just going to start out talking about the offensive side of the ball. Offensively, they are pretty dang stacked. You're going to go over at the quarterback position, and you have a quarterback in Justin Herbert who is going to have a quick throwing release ability. I honestly can't remember if he has either gunslinger. He might either have gunslinger or set feet lead. Again, both are pretty good, so it doesn't really matter. He's going to get rid of that ball quickly, and that's all that matters. Not only does he have a quick release, but he is also going to be able to have some mobility. As long as your quarterback has a little bit of mobility, it's going to be good. It's going to get the job done. And Herbert definitely checks those boxes. He is going to be able to get rid of the ball quickly. And if you need to scramble just a little bit, obviously he's no Lamar Jackson, he's no Kyler Murray running around there, but he is going to be quite sufficient in doing so. So, very good quarterback. Moving on to the rest of the offense, what do you have? You have a pretty good running back. I'm not going to say he's an elite running back in Madden 23, but he's going to be very good. He can do everything that you want at the running back position. He is going to be a nice mix between speed and power. Austin Eckler I'm referring to. He is going to be able to catch passes out of the backfield. He, I believe, might also have running back abilities. He might have, running back apprentice or backfield master, one of those things. I'm not sure. I don't quite remember all these abilities. I'm not sure if they were released out to the public yet, but he's going to be a very good running back for you. He's pretty decently fast. He doesn't have elite track field speed, but he is going to get the job done. And again, having a decent running back is very important. So, good combination of power speed is going to fall forward. Going on to our targets or our weapons, we have at the wide receiver position, we're going to have a great deal of weapons for Justin Herbert to throw to, mainly being Keenan Allen and Mike Williams. And then that wide receiver 3 is not very good on the Chargers, but you can find some speed and someone who is decent enough to get the job done. Keenan Allen and Mike Williams, I believe, will both have abilities in this year's game, which is going to be nice to have. And again, they're both elite route runners. They can get separation on anybody. Mike Williams, now they're both not the fastest. They're more so physical wide receivers, so you don't necessarily have an elite track field speed option besides that wide receiver 3, which you can find someone with decent speed, not necessarily Tyreek Hill speed. And then tight end, I think they have Gerald Everett. I'm actually going to look this up real quick to double check so I don't look dumb, but I believe Gerald Everett is who went to the Chargers. Let me just double check. And yes, so he's on the Chargers, so they have a lot better tight end than they did last year. Since they lost Hunter Henry, they had nobody really that good last year, and now they get a better tight end. So, again, offensive line is decent, no abilities there, but it is good enough to get the job done. Now, moving on to defense, which is mainly why this team is good. A lot of teams will have really good offenses, and then they fall on the defense, like the Chiefs or someone. But this team, they do not do that. Defensively, you're going to have 2 elite edge rushers, which is very, very important in this game to have, and it can change the game. And we're referring to Joey Bosa and Khalil Mack. You put them both on the edge, and you're going to be doing quite well for yourself. Moving on to the rest of the defense, you have a decent defensive tackle option in Linval Joseph. You will take that. You have some great linebackers and safeties just to utilize. I'm not going to name every single one, but you have some good cornerbacks, Chris Harris, and then you have guys like Derwin James, Nasir Adderley, just elite play all over the board. Kenneth Murray is going to be a good linebacker for you guys, and overall just a good defense. But that's going to take us, and let's move on to number 2. Now, number 2 is going to be the Bills, and the Bills are going to be very good. Again, so it's important to have a good quarterback in the game. It's the most important position on your football field, and they have what I would consider probably the best quarterback in the game. And he's going to have really, really good speed. I think, third fastest speed around there besides Lamar and Kyler, I would have to guess. I'm not sure the exact ratings. Maybe there's a rookie who's super fast. Again, you can consider those guys out of the equation, though. But elite quarterback play, he's going to have gunslinger. He's going to be able to make every throw. And, of course, that throw power, other than Mahomes, he's going to be the only guy that can really compete with it. I think 98, 99 throw power. And he's going to be able to make every throw on the field. He can throw across his body. He can escape the pocket. And he has a very quick release as well. So I think he is the best quarterback in the game. Now, the wide receiver play and the depth is just the reason that this team is probably not as good as the Chargers. And that's going to come into play more so defensively, although they do have a couple defensive players that are going to be great. Now, receivers, you have Diggs. Other than that, you have kind of one elite wide receiver instead of two. Or, I guess, on the Chargers, I would consider Keenan Allen elite and then Mike Williams good. So, there is that for you. And they have Emmanuel Sanders, they have Gabriel Davis, so they do have kind of a considerable number 2 and 3, where the Chargers kind of have an unknown number 3. Guys like Josh Palmer are playing that role, who are definitely not the best to have. Now, as far as the running back position, again, it's where you kind of see a little bit of a fall off from the Chargers. You don't have an Austin Eckler, you have yourself a Devin Singletary or a James Cook, so again, not as good there. They will be getting the job done. But if you're a heavy runner, this might not be the best team to use because you don't have necessarily a good, solid guy at that position. As far as the rest of the offense goes, you have a good tight end, Dawson Knox. He gets the job done. The offensive line, I would consider it probably a little bit worse than the Chargers, just across the board, because the Chargers have some bigger names like Rashawn Slater and Corey Linsley, whereas the Bills, I wouldn't really consider them to have anybody besides Dawkins that is necessarily an elite guy that comes to mind. So a little bit worse there. And again, they have a better quarterback, but other than that, they obviously have one receiver who's better than Keenan Allen, but I would consider overall the Chargers better. And then defensively is where you do see a little bit of a drop off as well. Now they do still have some decent edge rushers, but you're going to only have Von Miller, one superstar on that D-line, rather than two with Khalil Mack and Joey Bosa. And again, they have guys like Ed Oliver that can definitely get the job done, but just not as good. And then moving on to the rest of the defense, you do have more of an elite cornerback in Tre'Davious White, although I don't see too big of a difference in having like an elite cornerback in this game. So I don't consider that on as high of a scale as the defensive line personally. And the rest of the defense, again, you don't have a unicorn as a user or a safety like a Derwin James roaming that field. You do have two good safeties in Micah Hyde, Jordan Poyer, those guys are good, but in this game, they're a little bit slower, and the zone coverage attribute just doesn't mean as much, so having good coverage guys doesn't make as big of a difference, in my opinion. And then, linebacker play, it's average, just a slow guys, not too good, I would say. So that's why they're number 2, but they are still going to be a very good team. Let's go into number 3 now. Now, number 3 is going to go ahead and be the Arizona Cardinals. Very good team in the beta to use, very annoying to play against. I thought about putting them number 2, but I decided not to at the last second. It's very close. I would almost consider it a 2A, 2B situation just because of how annoying this team was to play for, and a big part of the reason is going to be number 1 at the quarterback position, Kyler Murray, but also not just having Kyler Murray, but having a little bit better receivers than the Bills, I would say. Just across the board. Now, let's talk about Kyler a little bit. He's going to be faster than Josh Allen. He's going to have the second most speed in the game, and he is going to be able to make a considerable difference running around in that pocket. Now, again, it's not as effective as it was in past years, just the running around thing, but it still is good to have, I would say. Nobody's going to turn down more speed at the quarterback position. He's going to have gunslinger, so he's going to be able to release the ball just about as fast as anybody in the game. And he is going to have a pretty good arm. Now, he's not going to have the throw power of Josh Allen. He's going to have a little bit less throw power. He still has a cannon, but he's going to have a little bit less throw power. and his accuracy is going to be worse. So you will see guys like Kyler Murray miss passes, whereas Josh Allen, you'll rarely miss a pass unless you're rolling to your right, off your back foot, throwing across the body. So he's going to miss a little bit more passes. Let's go to the weapons, though. The running back position, it's going to be better than Buffalo, but it's going to be worse than LA. You will notice James Conner is going to be a little bit slower, less elusive. He's going to be more of a power back, so he's going to fall forward probably a little bit more. He still can be athletic, make plays. You don't see too big of a difference because now speed does play a little bit more of a role, so that's why he's just a little bit worse, but he still can make all the catches. He's a good back overall. Now, going into the wide receiver position, you have an elite guy like a DeAndre Hopkins, which you love to see. Now, you're only going to really have one kind of elite option, but here is where the number 2 and number 3 guys come into play. Having a number 2 like Hollywood Brown is very important. He's super fast, 98, 97 speed. Very good to have him. And then with the Cardinals, you have a wide receiver 3 in Rondale Moore, who I like to sub in instead of A.J. Green. I think they still have A.J. Green. Actually, never mind. I might be tripping about that. It is always tough to keep up with free agency news. I think it went somewhere. He's still on the Cardinals. Never mind. So I was right originally. So I like to sub in Rondale Moore instead of A.J. Green. If you want even more speed, I think Andy Isabella. He actually might have got cut. Honestly, I don't remember. Again, I always see these headlines, but I don't study them. So he might have got cut somewhere else. But you still have Rondale Moore. So you have 3 really good receivers. Hopkins, we know what he can do. Tight end position, not the best. You have a guy like Max Williams, or actually Zach Ertz. It is pretty decent. Zach Ertz isn't really good in this game just because of how slow he is, but he's a good route runner. He's a possession tight end, so he can make catches. Offensive line, it's not going to be good, but you still have an elite center in Rodney Hudson. The rest of it is going to be a little bit iffy with guys like Humphreys and Justin Pugh that are just question marks. And then, of course, you move to the rest of the offensive line, and I don't even know who their right tackle is. I honestly forgot. But overall, Rodney Hudson's going to be good to step into the pocket. I like having a good center in this game, and that's going to definitely contribute to that. Now, moving on to the defense. Defense is going to be pretty questionable. You do have J.J. Watt. You lost Chandler Jones, which does hurt in Madden because you had Watt and Chandler Jones. Now you only have J.J. Watt. So, of course, it's a little bit worse. You still have some good pieces like Isaiah Simmons, but the defense is going to be just overall a little bit worse there. The cornerback play is very questionable as well. Again, you have some guys who are decent, but nobody who's really going to flash besides Isaiah Simmons on that defense and Budda Baker, of course. So I usually will use Isaiah Simmons since I think he might actually have his position changed to a linebacker in this game, and then I will just have Budda Baker ranged in my middle of the field. So overall, that's going to be it for number 3. Let's move into number 4. Now, number 4 is going to be the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I know you were wondering when they would appear, and that time is now. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers are a very good team. Now, the quarterback position is going to be a little bit worse, but for abilities purpose, it might actually balance out depending on your scheme. Now, Tom Brady is going to have that hot route master ability, so he's going to be a lot more versatile for guys that run integral schemes out of formations that don't get all the routes that you need in the game. So if you're not running a bunch tight end or trips tight end where you have all those really good routes, this is where the Bucs are very handy for that purpose. Tom Brady, he's going to make every throw. He has good enough throw power. He's not going to be able to move, which is where he can hurt you. Oh my, and I just got the notification on my phone that Julio Jones is joining the Buccaneers. Ironically, literally right during this video. So that is some crazy news, and that will actually come in handy this video. Now you go over to your wide receiver core now. Who do you have? You have Mike Evans. You have Julio Jones. And Julio Jones isn't as good in Madden anymore, but he still is going to be better, and he fills that spot that Antonio Brown was holding. So you have Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, and Julio Jones. It's going to be an elite wide receiver core. It almost makes me want to move them up, but the video is already done, so we're not going to do that. But that is some crazy news that I just got during this video. And again, Julio Jones to the Buccaneers is some nice news. Now, tight end position, you lost Gronkowski, but you still have guys like Brate. O.J. Howard, I believe, is still on the Buccaneers. Again, I've been not paying attention to football as much since it's baseball season, and I've been doing fancy baseball and things like that. But so again, some of those role players, I don't know exactly where yet until football season starts, probably, or fancy football season starts. But yeah, they have Cameron Brate, who's good enough tight end. Gronkowski wasn't necessarily the best thing in this game anyway because of how slow he was. So Brate's going to be pretty much the same. The offensive line is still going to be pretty good. Now, they did lose a couple of pieces, but Still going to be overall above average offensive line. You can't complain about it. Defensively, they're going to be very good as well. You're going to have just a lot of pieces there. Guys like Shaq Barrett on that defensive line running wild. You have Antoine Winfield. You have Jamel Dean, I believe, still there. And JPP, I think he went somewhere else. Sue probably went somewhere else. But you have guys like Devin White there. And the team is going to be just overall decent. The offense definitely makes up for it. But it's a good balanced team. You have guys like Vita Vea to stuff the middle. So overall, good team for number 4. Now, I feel like these 4 are kind of almost unanimous. Now, the order might not be unanimous that I chose, but these 4 should be widely considered if you play the game of Madden to be those top 4 teams that you see the most often. Now, the 5th team is going to be very complicated. You have a lot of teams that could go here, and that's going to be, I'm just going to start listing them before I actually make my pick, but you have teams like the Green Bay Packers, the Kansas City Chiefs, the Denver Broncos, even the Raiders can be good teams, the San Francisco 49ers, the Rams, the Bengals. So you have just a list, not even mentioning Baltimore. So you have really just a ton of teams that are just almost in this range. It's very difficult to pick. Who am I going to pick? I'm going to go with the Green Bay Packers. Green Bay Packers are going to be my selection. And it was a very difficult pick because I almost wanted to go Kansas City, but I do not really mess with Mahomes in the game. I just really don't like his release, and I just don't like the Chiefs this year without Tyreek Hill as much. Having Juju as that number 1 receiver really hurts them, and they're just not that good. Now, I know you could say the same thing about Green Bay, but stick with me here. Green Bay is still good. Starting with the quarterback, you have Aaron Rodgers, and you have Aaron Jones. You have an elite running back in this game, and you have an elite quarterback in this game. Best release in the game with Rodgers. He's going to be able to get the ball out really quickly. You still have a couple of decent wide receiver targets. I think they got Sammy Watkins, right? So they have MVS, Sammy Watkins, and they have Allen Lazard. So they have 3 decent receivers. None of them are going to, go off the board. And really who I was choosing between was the Packers and the Broncos mainly. It was a tough pick, but I just decided to go Packers because I was more comfortable with them, but the Broncos are very good. And again, that's a situation where I'm going 5A, 5B. Defensively, they still have a very good defense. And offensively, a tight end, they still have Tanyan, who's going to be a decent guy as well. The offensive line is still going to be pretty good. You have guys like Bakhtiari, Elton Jenkins. So you still have a couple of pieces on that line that's going to make it above average, kind of that top 10 echelon. And defensively, you still have some nice guys. Now, you did lose Zadarius Smith, but you still have a couple guys that can get to the passer. Rashawn Gary, Kenny Clark is a big disruptor in this year's game. And then you have Preston Smith, I think, is still there. Jair Alexander. Then you have Darnell Savage. Amos, I think, is still there as well. And, so definitely a good defense. And I just think they're a safe team. I feel like a lot of people are comfortable using them. I'm pretty comfortable using Green Bay, so that's kind of why we're rocking with them. And that's going to be my list. Let me know what you would change. Again, I mentioned some of those teams that could go there. So let me know your top 5 if you are watching this. And that's your video. Peace. I'm out of here.